The shuttle docked with a heavy metallic sound that echoed through the landing bay. Katie Brooks picked up her single bag and stepped onto the deck of the Vigilant Dawn for the first time. The ship was massive. She had read the reports, but nothing prepared her for the scale of it. Corridors stretched in every direction, like the veins of some great metal beast. Aliens of a dozen different species walked past her without a second glance. She was 24 years old, average height, with brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail. Her uniform was clean and pressed, the Earth Coalition patch bright on her shoulder. To anyone watching, she looked like exactly what she was supposed to be. A junior soldier on a diplomatic exchange program. Nothing special, nothing threatening. A tall woman approached her with quick steps. She wore the same uniform, but with lieutenant bars on her collar. Her face showed relief and worry in equal measure. "Private Brooks? I'm Lieutenant Zara Finch. I'm the only other human assigned to this ship." She spoke fast, her eyes checking the corridor in both directions. "We need to talk before you meet anyone else." Katie followed her through winding passages until they reached a small room with 2 bunks. It was clearly meant for species much larger than humans. The beds could have fit 3 people each. Lieutenant Finch closed the door and turned to face her. "How much did they tell you about this assignment?" "They said it was a cultural exchange. I would train alongside coalition forces and learn their methods." Finch laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's the official story. The truth is that you're here because someone in the diplomatic corps thinks having humans on coalition ships will improve relations. But not everyone agrees with that decision." "You mean the commander?" "Commander Vrexthal." Finch sat down on one of the massive bunks. "He's Kirvani. 7 feet tall, 4 arms, scales like armor plating. His species has been the backbone of coalition military power for 300 years. And he thinks humans are a mistake." Katie set her bag down carefully. "A mistake how?" "He believes Earth should never have been invited into the coalition. He calls us a soft species. Says our planet's death world classification was exaggerated for political reasons." Finch leaned forward. "Listen to me carefully. The best thing you can do on this ship is stay invisible. Don't stand out. Don't give him any reason to notice you. He's broken soldiers from species much stronger than us. He will find ways to make your life miserable if you give him the chance." Katie nodded slowly. "I understand. Do you? Because I've seen what happens to people who cross him." Last year, a Volnari recruit questioned one of his training methods. Rex put him in the medical bay for 2 weeks. Called it an educational demonstration. Finch stood up and moved to the door. "I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to keep you alive. Just keep your head down and get through this assignment. That's all any of us can do." She left Katie alone in the oversized room. Katie sat on the edge of the bunk and stared at the wall for a long moment. Then she opened her bag and began unpacking with slow, methodical movements. Her face showed nothing. Her breathing was steady and calm. The next morning, she reported to the central training hall as ordered. The space was enormous, designed to accommodate species of all sizes. Training equipment lined the walls, some of it familiar and some of it completely alien. Dozens of recruits stood in loose formation, representing at least 8 different species. Katie found a spot near the back and waited. Commander Vrexthal entered through the main doors, and the room went silent immediately. He was exactly as Finch had described. 7 feet of scaled muscle, 4 arms crossed over a chest like a barrel, eyes like chips of black stone. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never been challenged in his life. Behind him walked a massive gray-skinned creature that Katie recognized as a Vernax. The species was known throughout the galaxy for their incredible strength and durability. The commander's gaze swept across the assembled recruits and stopped on Katie. "So," he said, his voice deep and resonant. The human has arrived. Every eye in the room turned to look at her. Katie kept her expression neutral and said nothing. Vrexthel walked toward her, his heavy footsteps echoing off the metal floor. He stopped less than 2 feet away and looked down at her with obvious contempt. "I want everyone here to understand something," he announced, still staring at Katie. "This soldier is here because of politics. Because someone far from this ship decided that humans deserve a place among real warriors. I disagreed with that decision. I still disagree." He leaned closer. "But I follow orders, even the foolish ones." Katie met his eyes without flinching. "Yes, Commander." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, perhaps, that she did not look away. He straightened and turned back to address the full group. "Tomorrow we begin combat assessments. Every new transfer will demonstrate their abilities in the arena. No exceptions." He glanced back at Katie. "We will see what Earth has sent us. We will see if there is anything of value hiding inside that small frame." He walked away, the Varnax following close behind. The other recruits dispersed slowly, many of them shooting curious or pitying looks in Katie's direction. A few of the larger species laughed among themselves, making jokes she could hear clearly. They talked about how long the human would last. They made bets on whether she would cry. Katie ignored all of it. That night, she found an empty corner of the training hall and began to move. Simple exercises at first, stretches and basic forms. Then faster, harder, her body flowing through patterns learned over years of training. She moved in silence, her footsteps barely making a sound. Lieutenant Finch watched from the shadows of the doorway. She had come to check on the new arrival and found something she did not expect. The way Katie moved was not like any combat training Finch had seen in her years of service. It was older, more primal, like watching a predator practice for a hunt. Finch left without saying a word. She returned to her quarters and sat in the darkness for a long time, thinking about what she had seen in the training hall. Katie finished her exercises and stood perfectly still in the empty room. Her breathing was steady. Her heart rate was calm. Tomorrow would be the combat assessment. She was ready. The training arena filled with bodies as recruits gathered on the observation platforms. The central fighting pit was a circle of reinforced metal, 30 meters across, with adjustable gravity controls and environmental systems that could simulate almost any condition. Today, the settings were standard. No advantages for anyone. Katie stood among the other new transfers, watching as Commander Vrexthel reviewed data on a holographic screen. His forearms moved with practiced efficiency, pulling up files and combat records. The Vernax warrior stood beside him, arms folded across his massive chest. Lieutenant Finch pushed through the crowd to reach Katie's side. "I've been asking around," she whispered. "The commander usually pairs new recruits against opponents of similar size and experience. Standard practice, but not today," Katie said quietly. "No." Finch's jaw tightened. "I heard the matchups. He's putting you against Kethrol." Katie looked at the gray-skinned giant standing beside the commander. "The Vernax? He's undefeated in 63 consecutive matches. He's the commander's favorite student, the most dangerous fighter on this ship." Finch grabbed Katie's arm. "This isn't a test. It's an execution. He's trying to send a message about humans." Katie gently removed Finch's hand from her arm. "I understand. You need to forfeit. Before the match starts, just forfeit. There's no shame in it. No one expects you to fight him." "I appreciate your concern, Lieutenant." Before Finch could respond, Commander Vrexthel's voice boomed across the arena. "Attention! Today, we assess the newest members of our crew. We will see who has the spirit of a true warrior and who does not belong among us." He read through the first several matchups. Alien recruits stepped into the pit and fought brief, intense bouts. Some won, some lost, but all showed skill. The crowd cheered for good strikes and groaned at mistakes. Then the commander smiled. And Katie knew her name was coming. "Private Katie Brooks of Earth," he announced, his voice carrying easily over the noise, "will face Kethrall of the Vernax Dominion." The arena went quiet. Recruits exchanged glances. Even the aliens who had laughed at Katie yesterday looked uncomfortable now. This was not a fair match. Everyone knew it. Lieutenant Finch stepped forward. "Commander, I must formally object. Safety protocols require opponents to be matched by weight class and experience level. This pairing violates those protocols." Vraxthil turned his black eyes on her. "Are you questioning my judgment, Lieutenant?" "I'm citing regulation, Commander. Regulations allow exceptions for special circumstances. I am declaring this a special circumstance." He turned away from her, dismissing her objection. "The match will proceed." Finch started to speak again, but Katie touched her shoulder. "It's fine." "It's not fine. He's trying to hurt you. I know." Katie moved past her toward the fighting pit. "Thank you for trying." She stepped into the arena and felt the subtle shift in gravity as the sensors registered her presence. The metal floor was cool beneath her boots. The lights above were bright and harsh, leaving no shadows to hide in. Kethrall entered from the opposite side. Up close, he was even more imposing than she had expected. 8 feet tall, at least 400 pounds of muscle and bone. His gray hide looked thick enough to stop a blade. His hands were the size of dinner plates, fingers ending in blunt claws. He looked down at her with something close to pity. "I will try to make this quick, small one. Nothing personal." Katie said nothing. She was studying him. The way he stood, the way his weight shifted, the slight tension in his shoulders. He was strong, yes. Fast for his size, probably. But he was used to winning through power. He expected opponents to meet him head-on. Commander Vraxthil stepped to the edge of the pit. The crowd leaned forward. "Before we begin," the commander said loudly, "I want the human to understand our traditions. In Corvani warrior culture, we show no mercy in the arena. Combat is sacred. We do not hold back, and we do not accept surrender until one fighter cannot continue." He looked directly at Katie. "You will follow this code. You will show no mercy. Do you understand?" Katie met his eyes. Her voice was calm and clear. "No mercy? You're certain, Commander?" Vraxthil's expression flickered with surprise at the question. He had expected fear. He had expected hesitation. Instead, she asked for clarification like a soldier confirming orders. "I am certain," he said slowly. "No mercy. That is a direct command." "Understood, Commander." Something in her voice made him pause. For just a moment, he felt a strange sensation he had not experienced in many years. It took him a second to recognize it. It was doubt, but the moment passed, and he raised his hand. "Begin." Kethrall charged. The Vernax moved with surprising speed for his size. The distance between them disappeared in seconds. His massive fist swung toward Katie's head with enough force to crack stone. She was not there. Katie slipped to the side at the last possible moment, letting his fist pass within inches of her face. She did not retreat. She did not panic. She simply moved, like water flowing around a rock. Kethrall stumbled, his momentum carrying him forward. He turned and swung again, a backhand blow that would have broken her spine. Again she dodged, ducking under his arm and stepping closer. The crowd murmured. Lieutenant Finch gripped the railing of the observation platform. Medical Officer Yilris, a delicate Silurian with silver skin and large dark eyes, moved to the edge of the medical station. She had never treated a human before. Their physiology was strange and poorly documented. She hoped she would not need to treat one today. In the pit, Catherall stopped and stared at Katie. She stood just out of his reach, her breathing steady, her stance relaxed. She had not thrown a single punch. "You cannot dodge forever, human," he growled. Katie's expression did not change, but something shifted in her eyes. Something ancient and cold woke up behind them. Lieutenant Finch saw it from the platform. She had seen that look once before in a documentary about Earth predators. The look of a hunter that has finished studying its prey. Katie's voice was quiet, barely loud enough to hear. The commander said no mercy. She moved. Catherall had fought 63 opponents in this arena. He had broken bones, torn muscles, and ended careers. He had never known fear in combat. He learned it now. The human moved like nothing he had ever seen. One moment she was standing still. The next she was inside his guard, her small fist driving into the nerve cluster beneath his arm. Pain exploded through his side. His left arm went numb. He swung at her with his right, a wild haymaker that could have killed a lesser creature. She was already gone, circling behind him, her foot sweeping his ankle. He stumbled, but did not fall. Vernaks were built for stability, but she was not trying to knock him down. Not yet. Her elbow cracked against the back of his knee. The joint buckled, and for the first time in years, Catherall dropped to one leg. He roared and spun, all 400 pounds of him whipping around to catch her with a backhand. Empty air. She had anticipated the movement before he made it. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Commander Vrexthil's 4 hands gripped the railing so hard the metal creaked. Katie circled the wounded, Vernaks like a shark smelling blood. She was not breathing hard. She was not tired. Humans were persistence hunters. Their ancestors had chased prey across African plains until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. Endurance was written into their DNA. Catherall pushed himself back to his feet. His left arm still hung useless at his side. His knee screamed with every movement. But he was Vernaks. He would not surrender. "Lucky strikes," he snarled. "You cannot hurt me with those small hands." Katie's voice was flat. "I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to break you. There's a difference." She came at him again. This time she did not dodge. She met his charge head on, but not with strength. She redirected. His own momentum became a weapon against him. She grabbed his arm as he punched, twisted her body, and used his weight to throw him off balance. Then her knee drove into his floating ribs. Something cracked. Catherall gasped and staggered back. She followed, relentless, her attacks coming in a continuous stream. She targeted joints, pressure points, the soft places between armored hide. Every strike was precise. Every movement was calculated. This was not the wild fighting of someone desperate to survive. This was something else. Something older and colder. Thousands of years of human warfare, refined and perfected, passed down through generations. Every martial art, every combat technique, every dirty trick that humanity had ever invented to kill things larger and stronger than themselves, all of it focused on one target. Catherall threw a desperate punch. Katie caught his wrist, stepped into his body, and twisted. The Vornax's arm bent at an angle it was never meant to bend. He screamed as tendons tore. She released him and stepped back. He fell to his knees, cradling his ruined arm. Blood dripped from a dozen small wounds where her strikes had found gaps in his thick hide. The arena was absolutely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Katie stood over her fallen opponent. The commander had said no mercy. She followed orders. Her foot connected with Catherall's jaw. His head snapped back, and he collapsed onto his side. She moved in, straddling his chest, her fists rising and falling in a methodical rhythm. Each blow targeted the same cluster of nerves in his neck and shoulder. She was not trying to kill him. She was systematically destroying his ability to fight. "Stop the match." Medical Officer Yilris screamed from the medical station. "She's gonna kill him." Commander Vrextil stood frozen at the edge of the pit. His black eyes were wide with something no one had ever seen on his face before. Fear. True fear. "Commander!" Lieutenant Finch shouted. "Call the match." Vrextil's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He was watching the small human female methodically dismantle his best fighter, and he could not understand what he was seeing. This was not possible. Humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to be soft. They came from a mid-tier death world at best, but the creature in the pit was not weak. The creature in the pit was a predator from a world that had spent millions of years teaching its children to kill or be killed. Katie's fist drew back for another strike. "Stop." Vrextil finally found his voice. It cracked on the word. "Match concluded. The human wins." Katie froze with her fist still raised. She looked up at the commander, and for a long moment, they stared at each other across the arena. Her expression was completely calm. There was no rage in her eyes, no bloodlust, no satisfaction. Just cool, focused attention. She lowered her fist and stood up. Kethral lay broken on the floor of the arena. He was breathing, but barely. One arm was dislocated. The other had torn tendons. 3 ribs were cracked. Multiple nerve clusters had been damaged so badly that he would need weeks of medical treatment to recover full function, and she had done it all in less than 2 minutes. Katie stepped over his body and walked to the edge of the pit. She looked up at Commander Vrextil with blood on her knuckles and not a single wound on her own body. "You said no mercy, Commander." Her voice was quiet but clear enough to hear in the silent arena. "Did I follow your orders correctly?" Vrextil could not speak. He could only stare at the small human female, who had just destroyed everything he thought he knew about her species. Medical teams rushed into the pit to attend to Kethral. Yilris moved with desperate efficiency, her silver hands flying over scanners and medical equipment. The crowd remained silent. Recruits from a dozen different species looked at Katie with new expressions on their faces. The mockery was gone. The pity was gone. What remained was something far more primal: respect and fear. "Lieutenant." Finch pushed through the crowd and reached Katie's side. "Are you okay?" Katie wiped the blood from her hands on her uniform pants. "I'm fine. You could have stopped sooner." After the first knockdown, the commander said no mercy. Katie looked at her with calm eyes. "I was following orders." Finch stared at her for a long moment. Then she laughed, a short bark of surprise. "You knew exactly what you were doing." Katie did not answer. She simply turned and walked out of the arena, leaving behind a broken Vernax, a speechless commander, and a room full of aliens who would never look at humans the same way again. Commander Vrextil sat alone in his quarters, all 4 arms braced against his desk. The lights were dim. The door was locked. On the screen in front of him, the recording of the arena match played for the 15th time. He watched the human move. He watched her strike. He watched his undefeated champion fall apart piece by piece under her precise, methodical assault. "Pause," he said quietly. The image froze. He zoomed in on Katie's face at the moment before her final attack. Her expression showed nothing. No anger, no excitement, no fear. Just calm focus. The same look a surgeon might wear while cutting into flesh. That was what disturbed him most. She had not lost control. Every movement, every strike, every decision had been calculated. She had followed his orders perfectly. No mercy. And she had shown exactly how dangerous that made her. Vrextil had spent his entire career believing that humans were soft. He had read the reports about their homeworld. Earth was dangerous, yes, but not remarkably so. There were planets with higher gravity, more deadly wildlife, harsher climates. The Death World classification had seemed like political exaggeration. Now he understood his mistake. Earth did not need to be the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. It only needed to be dangerous enough. Millions of years of evolution had produced humans, creatures that looked weak but were built for violence. Endurance hunters who could chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Social animals who had learned to fight together, to develop tools, to pass down knowledge of warfare to generations. He had asked the Death Worlder to show no mercy. He had commanded a predator to stop pretending to be prey. The door chimed. Rexdale ignored it. It chimed again. "Commander?" Lieutenant Finch's voice came through the speaker. "I need to speak with you." He considered refusing. Then he sighed and unlocked the door. Finch entered and stood at attention. Her face was carefully neutral, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. "I've come to file a formal protest about the match," she said. "Save your breath, Lieutenant. I know what I did was wrong." Finch blinked. She had not expected that. "Sir?" Rex still turned to face her. For the first time since she had known him, he looked old, tired. "I set up that match to humiliate your species. I wanted to prove that humans did not belong among real warriors. Instead, I proved the opposite. Private Brooks followed your orders exactly. Yes, she did." He laughed bitterly. "That's the worst part. I gave her permission to be what she really is. I commanded her to stop holding back. And now I understand that she was always holding back. Every moment since she came aboard." The door chimed again. This time, the voice was different. Cold and official. "Commander Vrexthal, Admiral Shenvra wishes to speak with you. Immediately." Vrexthal closed his eyes for a moment. Then he activated the communication screen. Admiral Shenvra was an older Corvani. Her scales faded to a pale gray, but her eyes were sharp and angry. "Commander, explain to me why I am receiving reports of a human soldier nearly killing one of our best fighters in a training exercise." "Admiral, do not waste my time with excuses. I have watched the recording. I have seen what that human did to Kethril. I want to know why you allowed this to happen." A new voice cut in before Vrexthal could respond. "Perhaps I can help explain, Admiral." The screen split to show a second face. Human. Male. Middle-aged, with calm eyes and a diplomatic smile. Ambassador Daniel Park, Earth's representative to the Coalition. Admiral Shenvra's scales darkened with anger. "Ambassador, this is a military matter. Your presence is not required." "With respect, Admiral, this is very much a diplomatic matter." Park's smile did not waver. A human soldier was ordered by her commanding officer to engage in combat under Corvani warrior traditions. Specifically, she was commanded to show no mercy. She followed that order to the letter. She nearly killed a Vernax warrior. She defeated a Vernax warrior using the methods Commander Vrexthal himself demanded. Park leaned forward slightly. "I've reviewed the recording." Private Brooks asked for clarification before the match began. She asked if the commander was certain about the no mercy order. He confirmed. She followed orders. Shenvra turned her glare back to Vrexthal. "Is this true?" Vrexthal's jaw tightened. "It is true, Admiral." "Then explain your reasoning, Commander. Why would you give such an order to an untested human recruit?" The silence stretched for several seconds. Vrexthal could lie. He could claim it was a test of some kind, a legitimate training exercise. But he was Corvani. Warriors did not hide from their failures. "I was trying to break her," he said quietly. "I believed humans were weak. I wanted to prove it publicly. I was wrong." Park nodded slowly. "Thank you for your honesty, Commander." "Admiral, I trust you can see that no military protocol was violated." The human soldier followed a direct order from her commanding officer. She performed exactly as commanded. If anyone is responsible for the outcome, it is Commander Vrexthal himself. Shenvara was silent for a long moment. Her scales shifted through several colors as she processed the information. "This incident will have consequences," she finally said. "Word is already spreading through the fleet. Other commanders are asking questions about human capabilities. Some are requesting human transfers. Others are demanding that humans be removed from coalition vessels entirely." "I understand," Park said. "Earth is prepared to address any concerns. We have always been transparent about our nature. Humans evolved on a death world. We are adapted for violence. We simply choose not to display that adaptation unless necessary." "Unless ordered to?" Shenvara corrected. Park smiled. "Exactly, Admiral. Unless ordered to." Private Brooks was ordered to show no mercy by a superior officer. She obeyed. That seems like exactly the kind of discipline the Coalition values. The Admiral stared at him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she laughed. It was a harsh sound, like rocks grinding together. "Well played, Ambassador." "Well played indeed." She turned back to Vrexthal. "Commander, you will face no formal discipline for this incident. But I suggest you reconsider your views on humanity. They are more dangerous than any of us realized. And perhaps that makes them exactly what the Coalition needs." The communication ended. Park's image remained on screen for a moment longer. He looked at Vrexthal with knowing eyes. "Commander, I've been waiting for something like this to happen ever since humans joined the Coalition. Someone was always going to underestimate us. I'm glad it was someone who had the honor to admit his mistake." He paused. "I hope you'll treat Private Brooks with the respect she deserves from now on." The screen went dark. Vrexthal sat in silence for a long time after that. Lieutenant Finch eventually left without saying another word. In the medical bay, Catherall woke up surrounded by machines and pain. Eurus was there, her silver hands adjusting his medications. "What happened?" he asked, his voice rough. "You lost," Eurus said simply. "The human defeated you." Catherall tried to move and gasped at the pain. "That was not defeat. That was destruction." "What is she?" Eurus checked her medical scanner and sighed. "She is human. A species from a planet called Earth. A death world." "I thought death world was just a political label." Eurus looked at him with her large, dark eyes. "No, Catherall. It is not just a label. Humans are persistent predators. They evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They have dense bones, redundant organs, and a cardiovascular system designed for endurance. They heal faster than most species, feel pain less intensely, and their bodies continue functioning under conditions that would kill most other creatures." She paused. "And they have been fighting wars among themselves for thousands of years. Every technique she used on you was developed by humans to kill other humans. You were simply the first alien she was allowed to use them on." Catherall stared at the ceiling. His whole body throbbed with pain. But his mind was clear. "I want to fight her again," he said. Eurus looked at him with surprise. "You want revenge?" "No." Catherall closed his eyes. "I want to learn." 1 week passed aboard the Vigilant Dawn. 7 days that changed everything. Katie noticed a difference immediately. Aliens who had mocked her now stepped aside when she walked through corridors. Conversation stopped when she entered rooms. Eyes followed her everywhere she went. Not with hatred. With something more complicated. She had become a symbol. The human who broke the unbreakable Vernax. The soldier who took a Corvani warrior's command literally and showed the entire fleet what Deathworld really meant. On the 8th day, Commander Vrex, though, called another assembly in the training arena. Katie took her place among the other recruits. She expected more tests, more challenges, more attempts to prove that her victory had been luck. Instead, she found something she never anticipated. Rexthel stood in the center of the fighting pit, alone. His forearms hung at his sides. His posture was different than before. The arrogance was gone. In its place was something that looked almost like respect. 1 week ago, he said, his voice carrying across the silent arena, I made a mistake. I believed that humans were weak. I believed their death world classification was political nonsense. I believed that one of their soldiers could not possibly match fighters from truly dangerous worlds. He paused and looked directly at Katie. I was wrong. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A Kavani commander admitting error was almost unheard of. Their pride was legendary. Their stubbornness was even more famous. Private Katie Brooks defeated Catherall using nothing but her body and her training. Rexthel continued. She broke a warrior twice her size, 3 times her weight, and supposedly far more dangerous than her species should allow. And she did it while following my orders exactly. He clasped 2 of his hands behind his back. I have spent this week studying human combat techniques. I have watched recordings. I have read histories. I have learned things that disturb me deeply. The arena was completely silent. Humans have been fighting wars among themselves for thousands of years. They have developed hundreds of methods to kill creatures larger and stronger than themselves. They have refined these methods through countless generations of conflict. He shook his head slowly. We thought we knew what Deathworld meant. We thought it meant dangerous animals and harsh environments. But that is not what made humans dangerous. He pointed at Katie with one of his upper arms. What made humans dangerous is that they learned to be dangerous. They were not born the strongest or the fastest. So they became the smartest killers, the most persistent hunters, the most creative warriors. His voice dropped. And they have been hiding that nature from us since they joined the coalition. Katie felt every eye in the room focus on her. She kept her expression neutral. Today, Rexthel announced, I am implementing new training protocols. Human combat techniques will be incorporated into our standard curriculum. And Private Brooks has agreed to serve as an instructor. More murmurs. Some of the larger alien recruits looked uncomfortable at the idea of learning from someone so much smaller than them. But no one objected. Not after what they had seen. The training session that followed was unlike any before. Katie demonstrated basic techniques while Rexthel watched and translated her explanations for species with different body types. She showed them how to redirect force instead of meeting it head-on. She taught them pressure points and nerve clusters. She explained the principles of persistence and patience. Fighting is not about strength, she said at one point. It is about using your opponent's strength against them. It is about being there at the end, when they are tired and you are not. After the session, the recruits dispersed slowly. Many of them approached Katie to thank her or ask questions. She answered each one with the same calm patience she showed in everything else. Catherall pushed through the crowd. He had been released from medical the day before, his arm still bandaged but functional. He stopped in front of Katie and towered over her, his gray face unreadable. I have been wanting to speak with you, he said. Katie looked up at him without fear. Yes, I spent 3 days in the medical bay because of you. I have never been hurt that badly in my entire life. He paused. Thank you. Katie blinked. Thank you? You showed me that I was weak. Not in my body, but in my thinking. I believed size and strength were everything. You proved that belief wrong. He extended his good hand toward her. I would be honored if you would spar with me again. Not to fight. To learn. Katie looked at his hand for a moment. Then she reached up and shook it. I would be glad to teach you. That evening, she found herself alone on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Lieutenant Finch found her there and stood beside her in comfortable silence. "You've changed things," Finch said finally. "The whole fleet is talking about what happened. Other ships are requesting human transfers. Commanders who never wanted us are suddenly interested. Is that good?" Katie asked. "I don't know yet." Finch leaned against the window. "But I think it's honest. We've been pretending to be harmless since we joined the coalition. Trying to fit in. Trying not to scare anyone." She glanced at Katie. "Maybe it's time we stop pretending." Katie watched a distant star pulse with light. "The commander wanted to break me in front of everyone. He wanted to prove that humans don't belong among warriors. And instead he proved the opposite. I proved what I am." Katie's voice was quiet. "I didn't enjoy hurting Kethrile. But when the commander gave that order, I understood what he was really doing. He was giving me permission. Permission to stop holding back. Permission to show everyone what a human can do when the rules are removed. Were you afraid?" Katie considered the question. "Fear is interesting. Back on Earth, our ancestors lived with fear every day. Predators, starvation, disease, violence from other humans. We could have let fear control us. Instead, we learned to use it." She turned to face Finch. "Fear makes you faster. It makes you stronger. It sharpens your senses and focuses your mind. Humans learn to ride fear like a wave, to channel it into action instead of paralysis. That's what makes us dangerous. Not our strength, not our speed, our ability to function when we're terrified." Footsteps echoed behind them. Both women turned to see Commander Vrextil approaching. He moved differently now. His usual aggressive stride was softer, more measured. "Private Brooks," he said, stopping a respectful distance away. "Lieutenant." "Commander," Katie replied. Vrextil looked out at the stars for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quieter than either of them had ever heard. "My people have a saying. True warriors reveal themselves when tested. I tested you expecting failure. I expected to prove that humans were not worthy of respect." He turned to face her. "Instead, I discovered something remarkable. A species that hides its strength. That pretends to be harmless until the moment it is needed. That is more dangerous than any creature I have ever encountered." He held out one of his upper hands toward her. "I have been a soldier for 40 years. I have trained thousands of warriors. I thought I knew everything worth knowing about combat." His black eyes met hers. "Will you teach me?" Katie looked at his hand. The hand of someone who had tried to destroy her reputation, who had deliberately put her in danger, who had wanted to see her broken and humiliated, and who had admitted his mistake publicly, who had changed his beliefs when proven wrong, who was standing here now, asking to learn. She reached out and clasped his hand. "Yes, Commander. I will teach you." Behind them, the stars burned in the endless darkness. Somewhere out there, other species were learning about the human in the arena. The small female who had dismantled a Vernax champion. The soldier who followed orders too well that they were learning what Deathworld really meant, and they were learning to be afraid.